All right, y'all, we are back with another video. I definitely had to bring y'all this one. JD Vance absolutely just went off on the fake news CNN, putting out these lies, all this propaganda coming from CNN, talking about that they got the news from Iran, pretty much trying to down what President Trump is doing. And then we get to the thing where it said that Iran just halted tankers from traveling from the Strait of Hormuz after Israel continued to fire on Iran after the ceasefire with the U.S. So that right there is exactly what they said got going on, because we know, like, with them blocking the Strait of Hormuz, it just drove gas through the freaking roof, man. Because gas is freaking high, and it's all because of what Iran is doing. And it's just crazy and sad to see fake news CNN, these Democrats that's taking up for Iran over President Trump, all because they don't like him. Now, JD Vance just absolutely went off, and President Trump did as well. But JD Vance in particular said he's not playing with them, saying they better not back out of this ceasefire. It will be consequences, and that President Trump is pretty much not playing around with them. And then you still got the Democrats crying because President Trump said he's going to blow up the whole civilization in Iran, if they don't, come on with this deal and stuff like that. And then you still got CNN pretty much trying to beg Scott Jennings to go against President Trump. It's like, this is just crazy. These people is losing their freaking mind. But like I said, President Trump went off on CNN. We about to get into all of it. So please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Shout out to everybody showing so much support. And shout out to the one that always watches their entire video. I appreciate all of you. Y'all definitely help get the video out there. So please let me know in the comment section that you did stay to the end. And by the way, if you would like to support the channel, I do have my Cash App and my PayPal down below in the comment section. I've been getting a lot of y'all asking, Adogg, how do I donate? If you want to support the channel, like I said, I do have a PayPal and a Cash App down below in the description under this video. I appreciate everybody and your support. All right. So let's dive to this right here. If you see this, JD Vance questions the Iranian parliament speaker's understanding of English after he claimed the U.S. violated the ceasefire. Let's check out what JD Vance said, because he didn't hold back at all.
Tweeting that out before negotiations.
So I thought it was interesting, actually, because I did see that tweet from Ghalibaf actually just a couple of minutes ago. And let me say a few things. First of all, he said that there are a few points of disagreement before the negotiation. Well, that must mean that there's a lot of points of agreement, because there's a 15-point plan floating around. There's a 10-point plan floating around. If he's frustrated about 3 issues, that actually means that there's a lot of agreement. That's point number 1. Point number 2, to respond to each of those issues, and I read it very closely. Let me just say this. I actually wonder how good he is at understanding English, because there are things that he said that frankly didn't make sense in the context of the negotiations that we've had. But to address the 3 points, first of all, he talked about an attack that had allegedly happened on Iran and how that was a violation of the ceasefire. Ceasefires are always messy. An hour after the president announced the ceasefire, the Iranians launched a bunch of missiles. Then the Israelis responded. Then some of the Gulf Arab states responded. This is the nature of a ceasefire. No ceasefire ever goes without a little bit of choppiness. What we have been very clear about is that we want to stop the bombing. We want our allies to stop the bombing, and we want the Iranians to do the same thing. We're seeing evidence that things are going in the right direction, but it's going to take a little time. The second thing Ghalibaf said, which again I found fascinating, is he said, we refuse to give up the right to enrichment. And I thought to myself, you know what? My wife has the right to skydive, but she doesn't jump out of an airplane, because she and I have an agreement that she's not going to do that, because I don't want my wife jumping out of an airplane. We don't really concern ourselves with what they claim they have the right to do. We concern ourselves with what they actually do. And I think the president's been very clear on the enrichment question. Our position on that has not changed. I think the third thing that he said was Lebanon. Okay, and again, I actually think that is a reasonable misunderstanding, but neither us nor the Israelis said that that was going to be part of the ceasefire. Again, we're working with people to try to get through.
Tweeting that.
So you heard what JD Vance said, but like I said, he didn't stop there. It continues to go on because he's getting serious about this. JD Vance vows Iran will be eviscerated with serious consequences if they blow up peace negotiations. Because remember, JD Vance said he took a lot of calls from Iran and stuff like that. So I'm like, you won't believe what Iran just did to JD Vance. So y'all have all these calls with him, then y'all go behind his back time and y'all ain't gonna do this. And that's the reason why JD Vance said they will be eviscerated if they blow up these peace negotiations. Check this out.
Still on the table. Is it fair to keep 90 million Iranians under that threat for the actions of their leaders?
Well, look, the leadership is really to blame for the condition of the country in Iran. The President of the United States has made very clear that the United States has a lot of leverage here. We have economic leverage. We've got military leverage. What he's trying to do is make sure the American people are safe and strike a deal that's good for the American people. I encourage the Iranians to come to the table seriously. We've seen some signs that they're going to do that. We've seen some signs of bravado. Fundamentally, we're in a good spot. They're reopening the straits. We have a ceasefire. And frankly, if they break their end of the bargain, then they're going to see some serious consequences.
But wiping them off the map is different than an economic leverage or military leverage. Why is that kind of language useful in this kind of scenario?
Well, again, the President of the United States is saying that unless the Iranians do the right thing, he is going to have some serious consequences for the regime. We obviously don't want the people of Iran to suffer, but we have a lot of leverage the President of the United States could use, and it's why I think it's so important for the Iranians to be negotiators in good faith.
So they better be listening. But it continues to go on because they got a lot of these broke up into pieces instead of one big long video. JD Vance say President Trump has all the cards and Iran better understand it.
Look, I mean, this is one of the things, it's going to be one of the main subjects of negotiation is that we want Iran to not be able to make a nuclear weapon. We want the nuclear fuel, which is something the president has made very clear. And there's, again, the way to think about this is the United States has certain demands and certain things that we want. The Iranians have things they can get out of the negotiation. The more that they're willing to give us, I think the more they're going to get things out of this negotiation. The president's talked about sanctions relief. The president's talked about economic partnerships and things like that. That's not going to happen unless the Iranians make a firm commitment to stop anything close to the development of a nuclear weapon. And frankly, the president has all the cards here. We've got a lot of leverage. We've got a lot of things that we can do. But right now, I think that we're in a good spot.
We definitely is. So, and then, like I said, you're going to get to JD Vance pretty much talking about the fake news and the crap that CNN pulled yesterday and stuff like that, talking about, well, we got this news from a high source, Iranian, that gave us this information, and we know for a fact CNN is fake news. They're going to continue to lie. They're going to continue to spread propaganda, all because they hate President Trump, and they keep on trying to stick their nose in President Trump business and spread lies to the American people, what they continue to do. But here goes JD Vance said he reveals that he was taking constant phone calls, which I told y'all earlier. He was taking a lot of phone calls in Iran negotiations, helping achieve the current ceasefire framework.
Understand some details about that role, and do you think your well-known opposition to foreign wars generally was a factor that made you a key player in this?
Well, I appreciate Carolyn saying that. I mean, you know, my key role was I sat on the phone a lot. I answered a lot of phone calls. I made a lot of phone calls. And again, I'm happy about where we are. I think the president has struck a good deal for the American people, but fundamentally, the Iranians have got to take the next step, or the president has a lot of options to go back to the war.
Exactly. Don't stop there.
Look, if Iran wants to let this negotiation fall apart in a conflict where they were getting hammered over Lebanon, which has nothing to do with them and which the United States never once said was part of the ceasefire, that's ultimately their choice. We think that would be done.
So now you see Iran trying to use this Lebanon situation, trying to use it as if, you know, to try to stop the Strait of Hormuz, you know, keep on trying to block the Strait of Hormuz, and that right there is not going to work. So JD Vance announces that Israel has offered to let off strikes against Hezbollah and Lebanon if it helps peace arrangement between Iran and the U.S.
It's just said that he thinks negotiations would be unreasonable while that war is ongoing. So would you ask Israel to hold off strikes to allow some space for these talks?
Well, first of all, I know there's been some conversations between the Israelis and the leadership of our country today. I haven't been involved in that because I've been busy doing stuff in Hungary. I'm actually update when I get on the plane, but let me say a couple things. First of all, I actually think, and there's a lot of bad faith negotiation and a lot of bad faith, you know, propaganda going on. I think this comes from a legitimate misunderstanding. I think the Iranians thought that the ceasefire included Lebanon, and it just didn't. We never made that promise. We never indicated that was going to be the case. What we said is that the ceasefire would be focused on Iran and the ceasefire would be focused on America's allies, both Israel and the Gulf Arab states. That said, the Israelis, as I understand it, again, I'm supposed to get a fuller report when I get on the plane, have actually offered to be, frankly, to check themselves a little bit in Lebanon because they want to make sure that our negotiation is successful. That's not because that is part of the ceasefire. I think that's the Israelis trying to set us up for success, and we'll, of course, see how that unfolds in the next few days. But look, if Iran wants to let this negotiation fall apart in a conflict where they were getting hammered over Lebanon, which has...
Let's go, because he continued to talk about it.
The United States accomplished its military objectives. What we know is the United States could have imposed significant additional military and economic costs on Iran and still has the capacity to do so. But we thankfully, at this point, I think, have a ceasefire, thanks to the leadership of the President of the United States.
Yep.
The Iranians promising to open the Straits of Hormuz, and we have a negotiation that's supposed to start this weekend. That's the truth. I think it's a good first step. We're going to see if we can make more progress here in the days to come.
So this is where J.D. Vance pretty much go off on the media. Because like I said, CNN was spreading a lot of propaganda, a lot of leftists, a lot of Democrats, a lot of them were spreading a whole bunch of lies. So like I said, if y'all haven't seen my video from yesterday, please go back and check that video as well. But heck, J.D. Vance just went off on the media for continuously spewing Iranian bluffing and propaganda.
Vision in the country of Iran, and then them saying that somehow represents the negotiating position of the government. It's the equivalent of somebody in, let's say, a Democratic councilman in Boise, Idaho, saying something crazy, the local public access TV picking up that crazy statement, and then the New York Times running that as the position of the President of the United States. It doesn't make an ounce of sense. What's happening on the ground in Iran is that you have clearly the position of the government, which is to negotiate with the United States of America. You have the position of the President of the United States, which is to send the negotiators to Pakistan and engage in this good faith negotiation. And then, yes, you have some crazy people at the fringes of the Iranians who are leaking anonymously either for propaganda purposes or because they're embarrassed or because they don't like what happened. And the final point, when I say they don't like what happened, what we know is that the United States accomplished its military objectives. What we know...
Let's go. Because like I said, don't stop there. And J.D. Vance, like I said, he was cooking. And that's the thing about it, man. Like, J.D. Vance will be an excellent president. And I think he will become president, you know, after President Trump. Y'all let me know about that in the comment section. But he continues to go off on the fake news. J.D. Vance just exposed that the fake news keep posting trash or rejected Iranian 10-point proposals misleading the American people. Of course, they're gonna do that because they want what's bad for the American people. They want us to be doing bad, all because of what? Their hate for Donald Trump.
So let me just say, given you guys are going to ask about Iran, let me just say a few things, actually. So, number one, I think it's very important for the American media to be honest with the American people on this particular issue, because
that's not going to happen.
It's not just, you know, the normal issues of public policy. It actually affects peace and war. And here's what I mean. So in the past couple of days, I've seen a lot of reporting from the American media about the 10-point proposal that the Iranians have made. Now, as I know, because I've been involved in this, there are 3 different 10-point proposals, at least, that I've seen floating around. The first 10-point proposal was something that was submitted, and we think, frankly, was probably written by ChatGPT, that was submitted to Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner.
ChatGPT.
That immediately went in the garbage and was rejected. There was a second 10-point proposal that was much more reasonable, that was based on some back and forth between us, between the Pakistanis and that is the 10-point proposal that the president was referencing in his truth yesterday. And then, frankly, I've seen a third 10-point proposal that's even more maximalist than the first 10-point proposal that's been floating around various social media channels. Now, here's what's interesting about all this, is that I've seen various organs, the New York Times, CNN, others, pick up and run the original 10-point proposal based on little more than a random Yahoo in Iran submitting it to public access television in the country of Iran, and then them saying that somehow represents the negotiating position of the government. It's the equivalent of somebody in, let's say, a Democratic councilman in Boise, Idaho, saying something crazy, the local public access TV picking up that crazy about.
Yeah, but so like I said, you see what J.D. Vance had to say about this. So I definitely wanted to show y'all that because it's just been getting crazy. So this right here is where President Trump absolutely went off on CNN. President Trump posted right here on Truth Social. The alleged statement put out by CNN World News is a fraud, as CNN well knows the false statement was linked to a fake news site from Nigeria, and of course, immediately picked up by CNN and blared out as a legitimate headline. The official statement by Iran was just released and posted on Truth below. Authorities are looking to determine whether or not a crime was committed on the ensuance of the fake CNN World statement, or was it a sick rogue player. CNN is being ordered to immediately withdraw the statement with full apologies for their, as usual, terrible reporting. Results of the investigation will be announced in the near future, President Donald J. Trump. But President Trump didn't stop there. He go on to say right here, no one can believe that fake news CNN put out a knowingly false and dangerous statement pretending it came from the upper levels of the Iranian government. It didn't. It was a totally made up and posted as a headline for purpose of perhaps inflaming a very delicate situation. It was a new troublemaking site from Nigeria, and CNN just got caught cheating. A very dangerous thing to do. So if we go right here, and I salute the Professor Nez because he had posted this. CNN actually made a statement on it after President Trump said all that. So CNN came back and said the statement in question was obtained by CNN from Iranian officials and reported on multiple Iranian state media outlets. We received the statement from specific official Iranian spokespeople who are known to us. So pretty much CNN is pretty much doubling down on what they said. And they just go to show you it was no apologies. President Trump told them to apologize because they were telling a lie. And they just trying to say, well, we got this information from the Iranian spokespeople. So this is what they doing to try to continue their lie like they've been doing. So, and you see right here about DAREALADOGG, he said, breaking Iran just halted tankers traveling from the Strait of Hormuz after Israel continued to fire on Iran after the ceasefire with the U.S.
So there's a flurry of developments happening in this U.S.-Iran. It's a fragile ceasefire. It's later in the day there, obviously. They're 7.5 hours ahead, I believe you said. So we are waiting to see how this is going to go. There's a question about the Pakistani prime minister. He helped negotiate the ceasefire. He posted this just moments ago. Violations of ceasefire have been reported at a few places across the conflict zone, which undermine the spirit of the peace process. I earnestly and sincerely urge all parties to exercise restraint and respect the ceasefire for 2 weeks as agreed upon so that diplomacy can take a lead role towards peaceful settlement of the conflict. I don't think any of us saw the Pakistanis as the mediators here, but they stepped up. And we also have Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, at the State Department right now, soon to be at the White House. So what's going on?
Yeah, Iran shares a border with a lot of countries, but Pakistan's one of them. So geographically, it would make sense in that part of the world. Iran's news agency called the Fars are saying that oil tankers passing through the strait have been stopped because of Israel's ceasefire breach. So you have that going on. And there's a report out there that says that the president might not send J.D. Vance to Pakistan for the meeting in Islamabad on Friday.
Might be a little soon for that.
Yeah, we're just kind of like piecing this together right now. Some of this could play out the way we're saying it, and some of it may not. I think it's tenuous at the moment. And we've said it many times that ceasefires in the Middle East are a tricky thing.
So y'all heard that right there. But, you know, it continues to go on and say, breaking Iran, Fars news agency reporting that oil tankers transitioning the Strait of Hormuz have been halted after Iran claimed Israel violated the ceasefire. But obviously, like I said, we heard exactly what, you know, J.D. Vance just said, hey, it will be consequences if y'all do this. So let's check out this clip right here.
Oil tanker. Harris, good morning. We start with breaking news. State media reports that Iran has halted the passage of oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz after Israeli attacks on Hezbollah in Lebanon. Earlier today, we know 2 vessels were able to go through this passageway. But again, state media is reporting that the Iranians are choking off the strait. I just got off the phone with a senior Israeli official who was sounding the alarm about this action by the Iranians, saying only just a few hours into this ceasefire, the Iranians are already showing that they are trying to leverage their control over the strait and put pressure on global energy trade. And it also comes after reports overnight indicate that an Iranian attack hit Saudi Arabia's east-to-west oil pipeline, and there was significant damage that was currently being assessed. This is important because this pipeline is the only outlet for Saudi crude exports. And as the Iranians are putting pressure on the strait, they once again are trying to leverage this ability to put pressure on global energy exports. It comes after we got a new statement from President Trump this morning about Iran's nuclear program. The president on Truth Social said the United States will work closely with Iran, which we have determined has gone through what they will be a very productive regime change. There will be no enrichment of uranium, and the United States will, working with Iran, dig up and remove all of the deeply buried nuclear dust. The president referring to Iran's enriched uranium there. And again, a lot of moving parts with this agreement that is very new. We saw overnight new strikes against Iranian oil infrastructure on Lavan Island. This is just off the coast of Iran. A refinery there was reportedly hit in early morning attacks. We don't know which country is responsible for the strikes, but we do know it comes after the Iranians broke the ceasefire hours after President Trump announced it, launching missiles and drones at regional countries and U.S. ally Israel. Here's what it looked like in the skies of Tel Aviv just 2 hours after the ceasefire went into effect. Those bomblets raining down on Israel's second largest city of Tel Aviv. This came after the ceasefire was announced by President Trump and an indication that it will take time to get this agreement in place. We're looking at a number of different fronts here, and the Israelis are preparing for the possibility of more incoming fire. But I do want to bring up this post by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu overnight, who agreed with President Trump about this ceasefire with Iran. The Prime Minister said in part, quote, Israel also supports the U.S. effort to ensure that Iran no longer poses a nuclear, missile, and terror threat to America, Israel, Iran's Arab neighbors, and the world. The 2-week ceasefire...
So Netanyahu said Lebanon is not included in the ceasefire. And like I said, you heard what J.D. Vance said about, they said, hey, that right there wasn't part of the ceasefire. So it seemed like Iran was trying to blame the United States, you know, for what happened. And J.D. Vance like, hold, park the brakes. This right here was not part of the ceasefire. Let's go.
Does not include Lebanon. Now, we heard from the president through reports earlier today who agreed with the prime minister. Hezbollah and Israel are expected to exchange blows. What you are looking at here is the Iranian capital of Tehran. Early this morning, pro-regime demonstrators took to the streets. They chanted death to America and death to Israel. They were chanting victory and burning American flags. It gives you a sense of the regime support that still exists in the Iranian capital. And when we go out here to this image of the Lebanese capital of Beirut, we may even have some live images for you here. Smoke was rising from the horizon of southern Beirut, the Dakhia neighborhood, earlier today. While the ceasefire is in place between Israel, the United States, and Iran, the Israelis launched what they are calling the largest round of strikes since their operation began. More than 100 different targets hit across Lebanon. There are first responders there on the scene. These are live images from the Lebanese capital of Beirut. Remember, this is the Dakhia neighborhood of southern Beirut, a Hezbollah stronghold. Officials there in Beirut say dozens of people were wounded, many killed in these strikes that took place. And the Iranians, once again, through state media, are threatening direct retaliation against Israel for this strike against their largest proxy in the region. Harris?
Oh, boy, I got to tell you, this is the least ceasefire-like ceasefire I think that anybody might have anticipated. Iran certainly doesn't see it that way, obviously. Look, you had some breaking news, and I want to push in on it. Was it overnight, you said, that Saudi Arabia's east-west oil pipeline, very critical movement of oil there, was hit by Iran? Was that before or after the ceasefire?
We don't know the exact timing of that strike, but it's very significant because this is the main pipeline that Saudi Arabia uses to move oil. And when the Strait of Hormuz is choked off, it's the only pipeline that they're able to use to get those exports out to the world. Something important here that we should note, it wasn't just Israel that came under attack after the ceasefire went into effect. This morning, there were dozens of drones launched at Kuwait from Iranian territory. The United Arab Emirates also came under an Iranian missile attack. There were reports of missiles toward Bahrain and Qatar. So as this is taking place, the Iranians don't appear very serious about this ceasefire agreement. The president has offered them a good faith opportunity, a window of 2 weeks to reach a broader agreement. And we heard from the president before about Iran's nuclear program. I spoke with Israeli officials earlier today. They said despite these attacks on energy infrastructure across the region, the #1 priority for the Israeli military echelon and government is the enriched uranium. They understand that the Iranians were pursuing a nuclear weapon before, and they say that if that enriched uranium remains in the country, that in the future, Iran could be the new North Korea.
So y'all seen that right there. Y'all let me know about that in the comment section. Because like I said, man, it is so much stuff going on. And you see J.D. Vance say, hey, with the Lebanon situation, that was not in the ceasefire. And then you still seeing reports about Iran, still trying to block the Strait of Hormuz and President Trump. Then you heard what J.D. Vance said, hey, if y'all do this now, y'all know the consequences of what's going to happen. Y'all know exactly what's going to happen. So we heard that coming from Vice President J.D. Vance. Now, I want to get to this and show y'all this is how CNN is continuing to just try to go after President Trump. It's enough that they already put out some fake news, propaganda like they always do. President Trump told them to apologize. They didn't do it. They pretty much just, stood with what they said the first time. And here was, Abby Phillips and her minions trying to go at Scott Jennings and stuff like that over, President Trump pretty much saying he going to blow up the whole civilization. And like I said, President Trump said what he had to say, to pretty much get them to cave. But check this out.
Out of their civilization off the face of the earth. How are those not empty threats?
Well, it looks like it brought them to the table tonight and got them in a place where they would agree to a ceasefire. I mean, I'll give you a counter argument to all these other positions, which is
that is
the
not
president
connected to reality.
We have a ceasefire. Abby, do we not?
Tel Aviv is still under attack.
The same
as we were going on
table
air.
that we have tonight is the table that existed yesterday, in large part. And fundamentally, the only thing that has been agreed to is that Iran will continue to control the Strait of Hormuz and will allow ships to go through on their control. That is the only thing that has been agreed to.
The strait is going to be reopened, and we're going to negotiate about the rest. Beyond that, we don't really know much of anything. But I will tell you, yesterday, Iran was saying, we're cutting off, talks. We're not going to continue the talks. The president uses some extreme language, and all of a sudden, voila, tonight, we have a ceasefire for 2 weeks. Why can't we just say, you know what? Maybe we have achieved military objectives. Maybe we have taken down their military and their ability to export terror. Maybe we have decimated their missiles. Maybe we've buried the nuclear material. And maybe we've got 2 weeks to make the world a safer place. Why can't we look at this as a glass?
They ain't going to look at it that way because their whole agenda is let's just trash Trump. Let's just trash him. Why is he threatening? Think about this, y'all. They talking about why is President Trump threatening another country, but these are the same people that's on CNN that be wishing death on President Trump. These are the same people on CNN that pretty much had hope President Trump got shot, in the head and stuff like that, like directly in the head, in Butler, Pennsylvania. These are the same people that were saying it. But then they got a problem with President Trump just saying, I'm going to blow up a whole civilization. Something he didn't do. But yes, he said it. Sometimes you got to say what you got to say to get what you want, and that's exactly what happened. So they bowed down, they caved. And you got them just sitting over here crying over it. It's just crazy, man.
Have full moment as opposed to,
but then why
we have to make it negative for Donald Trump.
But why can't you just acknowledge that what Donald Trump said this morning was abhorrent and that no president should ever threaten annihilating a civilization? Why can't you just acknowledge that?
Oh, my God.
Look, he's talking to them in the way he thinks he needs to talk to them.
Why can't you acknowledge that?
Because
that is something that no
because I don't
president
take
of the United
orders
States
from
should
you,
say.
number one, and number two.
You heard what he said. He said, because I don't take orders from you. Because she keep on saying, why you just want to acknowledge it. So he answered the question. She didn't like the answer he gave. So she going to ask him again why you can't acknowledge it. Because I don't take orders from you. I don't have to think the way you think. That's the problem with these people. They think that you got to think the way that they think. If she think one way, she wants you to think like her. If you don't, then she got a problem with it. So I like that answer coming from Scott Jennings because I don't have to listen to you. Who are you? I don't take orders from you. You ain't my boss. So even if you were, you still ain't gonna get me to just say what you want me to say.
I have to make it negative for Donald Trump.
But why can't you just acknowledge that what Donald Trump said this morning was abhorrent and that no president should ever threaten annihilating a civilization? Why can't you just acknowledge that?
Look, he's talking to them in the way he thinks he needs to talk to them.
Why can't you acknowledge that?
Because
that is something that no
because I don't
president
take
of the United
orders
States
from you,
should say.
number one, and number two, I give him the space to negotiate with the Iranians the best way he knows how.
All right, well, let me just.
You said you asked him a question. He answered your question. He answered it, and you asked him the same question again. She said, well, why you just can't answer my question? He did answer, and you just didn't like the answer, so you decided to ask him again, and he was like, because I don't have to take orders from you. What do you want me to do? Just give you an answer that you want me to say? No.
Let me ask a final question, Scott, for the record. Do you think it's acceptable for the president to threaten to annihilate a civilization?
I think it's acceptable for the commander-in-chief to deal with these people in the best way that he can.
Is that a yes or is it a no?
Look at him. So they ask a question, he give an answer, they just want to cut him out, yes or no. I'm not going to give you no yes or no. I can't stand that, dude. Like, I cannot stand it at all. I hate like when they ask you a question and they try to tell you how to answer it. So no, I'm going to give you, an example. I'm going to give you some type of, talk after I tell you the reason why. I'm not just going to say yes or no because there's a reason behind me saying yes or it's going to be a reason behind me saying no. I'm not just going to say no and just leave it there. Like, she like yes or no. Like, what is wrong with them?
A yes or is it a no?
Result.
Is that a yes or is it a no?
So that's a yes.
Is that a yes or a no?
I'm not going to second guess him.
So it's a yes.
He put out a statement. We now have a ceasefire. Okay. Those are the two.
Salute to Scott Jennings, man, for not caving to them, man. Because they want him to answer it the way that they want him to answer it. Now they acting like they really care. Like, come on, dude. Y'all are freaking pathetic. Like, this right here is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. But like I said, y'all get in the comment section. Please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Y'all let me know what y'all think about, what JD Vance had to say about all of this. Did y'all agree with JD Vance? And like I said, I will keep y'all up to date because, it's probably going to be going on for a minute. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Once again, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.